pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome our guests, albeit few, and those of our viewing audience to our June 1st Selectmen's meeting. First item on our agenda, the minutes, regular and executive session, May 18th. Jeff?
Chairman, I move to approve the May 18th, 2009 regular minutes as written.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Yule, second by Mr. O'Leary. Discussion?
I'll be abstaining, Mr. Chair. That's the meeting I missed.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining?
Aye.
We also have the executive session of May 18th.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the May 4th.
Cross it out and change it.
I move to approve the May 18th, 2009 executive session minutes as written.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Yule, second by Mr. O'Leary. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Aye.
Correspondence? Pass it down. Do we have any? Anyone here for public comment?
Yeah.
Deanna?
I know.
You have the floor.
Deanna Castro, 9 Bridle Way. On behalf of North Reading United for Education, I wanted to thank the members of the board and Greg Valiakonis for identifying $210,000 and moving it from general government to the school budget to help close the gap. I also want to continue to thank the board and other boards in town for your ongoing cooperation and communication about finding funds to ensure education gains made last year don't unravel and put our children on an education roller coaster ride of services that don't make for a quality education experience. We also want to remind the public that NRU and Stand for Children have worked tirelessly all year to encourage the state and federal government to provide funding that is mandated by the state constitution and to use stimulus money earmarked for education efficiently and swiftly so it may prevent cuts and potential layoffs of teachers and benefit the children it was meant to protect. Despite all of our efforts, and we haven't given up yet, in fact we have examples of communication out to President Obama, Governor Patrick, Senators Kennedy and Kerry, Congressman Tierney, and the conference committee, it's not enough to bridge the school budget shortfall we'll be asked to address at town meeting. NRU also urges town leaders to keep up the pressure on the legislature, especially the Senate members of the conference committee during this critical week of budget negotiations. Now NRU is calling on all employees in North Reading, including administrators and teachers, and all of the town employees to take critical and necessary steps to enter into contracts that are affordable for next year and beyond. Affordable contracts save jobs and minimize cuts in both the town and schools. We understand that everyone has rising expenses, but in this economy, it's difficult to think that dedicated school and town employees will no longer have jobs without long-term affordable contracts for all unions. Affordable contracts help keep North Reading an attractive, vibrant community and one with security and a good quality of life for students and all residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Deanna. Next item. Yes, Mr.
If I
Bean.
could, Mr. Chair, just for the record, because I had found this out after speaking with you, that $210,000, and now stop me if I'm wrong, came out of health insurance. It wasn't like transferred from DPW.
That's correct.
over. So
That's correct. And I will go over that.
Okay.
Tonight when we go with the detail of the budget. Legal bills for April 2009. Mr. Bill Cummings.
Board members, the total was $9,582.57.
A couple of items that are noteworthy that I want to point out. You'll note that on the general legal services on page 1, we've been working with counsel on collecting overdue or past due police detail amounts. I think as I reported to the board previously, we had one vendor that was in excess of $18,000, and counsel has initiated efforts to protect the town's position and begin collection against that local contractor. The other item is, if you turn to page 4, you see a notation, Chapter 40B, Central Place. Although that's the title of it, it has less to do with the Chapter 40B permit. It has to do more with the bankruptcy action involving the property. The administration and the finance department offices have been working with town council because there's a substantial amount of back due taxes that are due on the property. And as you know, there have been some residents that have contacted the town and contacted the board relative to the completion of improvements on that site. My last conversation with town council is I asked that she alert the bankruptcy judge and that an amount be set aside to allow that additional site work to be completed in accordance with the comprehensive permit that was granted on the site. And that decision ultimately will be made by the bankruptcy judge, but unless we formally go ahead and make it a request, what is normally expected as part of the comprehensive permit might not get done. So we just wanted to state to the board that is the actions that have been taken. And then lastly, you'll note that a sizable amount of this bill, just over half of it, is attributable to labor, and the vast majority of that is attributable to an arbitration claim. That case, as I've reported at your last meeting, has concluded. This represents, since the bill lags behind by a couple of months, represents the end of that case. The remaining expenses are in line with what we expected and what we did budget for this year. And I would recommend you so approve.
Discussion? Motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve legal bills for April 2009 in the amount of $9,582.57 as follows. Copeland and Page, PC General, $4,448.57. Copeland and Page, PC Labor, $5,134 for a grand total of $9,582.57. Second.
Motion by Mr. Yule, seconded by Mr. O'Leary. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Next item on our agenda is reappointment of town council. Were we expecting any more town council here this evening?
We were not, no.
I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to reappoint Copeland and Page, PC, as legal counsel for the town of North Reading for a term to expire June 30th, 2010. Second.
Motion by Mr. Yule, seconded by Mr. O'Leary. Discussion.
I think they've done a fine job.
I concur with Mr. O'Leary.
Yes, I agree.
The issues that I've had in the past have
Yep.
been resolved. I'm in support of reappointing them. No comment. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous? Mrs. Stats?
Gentlemen, we're back here again on finalizing the centralization of the polling places that we discussed at the last meeting. So I forwarded you a memo that outlines the steps that need to be taken at this point. And, of course, the first one is that the selectmen designate the polling locations. And the motion that I suggested does state that we designate this in 2010. And the reason was, since we don't have any other elections scheduled for this year, and we do have to do a mailing to each resident affected by the change, we could incorporate that mailing with the town census. I outlined in the memo that the mailing, legal counsel for the Secretary of State's office, the Elections Division, doesn't feel that a mailing in a municipal bill will fit the letter of the law in notifying all residences that might have registered voters contained therein, since some people may live in the town, but they're renters, they may not receive a tax bill, they may not have water bills coming to them or trash services. So the one mechanism that they definitely feel would accommodate this is a separate letter in with the census form, because that database is based on the voter population. So that's why I designated 2010, which you can eliminate if you want to. You know, it doesn't matter to me, but we can't make it effective or utilize it as a centralized polling place until notification has been sent. So if there should be a special election call this year, for whatever reason, and you're anticipating that, you could leave that off of the motion, but then we would have to do a separate mailing to accommodate that. A printed description of the polling place locations has to be posted within the changed precincts, and then the Secretary of State's office has to be notified as well.
Questions, Mr. O'Leary?
No, it seems to make sense to just setting it up for 2010, and if by chance we have a special election, we'll deal with it then, but
Yeah.
anticipate. Yeah. Just leave it as is. So,
Yeah,
I think
I
it
think
makes
it's a
sense.
good idea to put it out.
And then put it out with the census and.
Exactly.
Save the money.
We'll do as much, you know, education at that point, you know, on the mailing, or the enclosure, I should say, if possible, to let people know. Maybe we'll have some kind of a diagram on the back that'll direct them, you know, to this and the traffic pattern that we're going to establish, trying to reconfigure the parking lot so that they have some advance notice and utilize the website and other, you know, available areas to make it as easy a transition as possible for the voting public.
Barbara?
Yes.
With respect to your suggested language for a motion, you say beginning in the year 2010, that carries then forward, right? It's not something that
Beginning
we
in the year,
decide.
that's what I would say. Again, there's no specific language designated under the law, and when I checked with legal counsel at the Secretary of State's office, they don't offer you any suggestions, but to me, that would
Yeah, if we would've
state
cha-
that from this point forward,
Yeah,
we
if
would
we
be
would
making the
change it,
change, and you would
we'd have
actually
to
have to
remail it.
make another motion
Right.
to do otherwise at this point. That's how I would interpret it. I don't know. Maybe a legal mind can,
Any other questions for
Well,
Barbara?
yeah.
Sean?
I have no question for her, but my thought in terms of the motion would be to leave off beginning of the year 2010, so we don't have to redo any motion or run into any difficulty with Secretary of State in case we do have a special election and need to notify residents before the end of this calendar year.
And that's fine with me, just as long as the board knows that we would have to do just a separate first-class mailing at that point. So that's not an issue for me. I was trying to make it as economically.
But if we strike the 2010, you can still do what you recommended.
Yes.
The
Yeah.
only thing that would change that if there was a special election call for whatever reason.
To my knowledge, that's how it would read. Yeah.
Joe?
I have a comment more than a question, if this is the appropriate time to do it. I did watch the tape, gentlemen, I want to let you know, the last meeting, and I'm going to be voting in opposition to this. The reason being, this is not going to work. It may work for a small town election, but even like a governor's election or a presidential election, this is not going to work. And I know what I'm talking about. I just left that yard not 45 minutes ago. I'm kind of surprised the board is willing to vote on something without seeing what the traffic pattern is going to be, because I haven't seen anything. I just don't know how you're going to get the people in and out of there, because you're going to have a queuing effect on Park Street when somebody's trying to come in from the Main Street side, and it's going to back up. It's going to stop them from being able to exit the church. I don't, and